everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Today's guest is Bill Stadler, who came to discuss one of the best jams from one of the best tours in Phish history, Tweezer into Izabella, or Tweezabella, from December 6th, 1997 at the Palace at Auburn Hills, Michigan. When it comes to fall 1997, there's no shortage of shows or jams to break down. And between all the Phish podcasts out there, lots of it has been covered by fans. That said, most guests on Attendance Bias have chosen entire shows from this tour, and not so many specific jams. This 1-2 punch of Tweezer and Izabella that opened the second set at Auburn Hills provides enough music and stylistic variety to carry a full conversation about this time in Phish history, plus much more. Accordingly, Bill came correct. You all know that I'm a teacher, and my favorite kind of attendance bias guest is the guest who comes prepared. You can't see it just by listening, but Bill came with notes, statistics, dates, and personal history. He was all ready to talk about this gig, this jam, and who he was at the time that it was played. It made for a great and informative conversation. So let's join Bill to talk about Page's setup, the 1992 Santana tour, and much more as we discuss Tweezabella, from Phish's show on December 6th, 1997 at the Palace at Auburn Hills. Bill, welcome to Attendance Bias. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Beautiful spring day here in New York. And you provided me the music for my drive home, one of the best, and I would assume best known Phish jams of all time. We are here today to talk about December 6, 97, specifically the second set opening pair of Tweezer into Izabella, colloquially known as Tweezabella. Is that what you call it?
Absolutely.
So, all right. So I'm not out on my own here,
No.
But we have a lot to talk about today. Fall 97 is always a popular choice, I would guess, for anything involving Phish, whether it's a podcast, a sit-down conversation, or just what show are you going to listen to. But today I'm really excited to zone in on a specific jam that has not really been mentioned very much on this podcast. So thank you for bringing it to the podcast, but also maybe, hopefully, to any listeners who haven't heard it before, to their attention.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, if there's any of you out there that haven't dug into any of 97 really, or that era of Phish, I highly recommend it. Anything after 95 till Big Cypress 99 was a whole nother chunk of the band that was not like their early days.
Definitely.
And it's a very interesting segment of their career. And so if you haven't dove in, please, definitely do yourself a favor and check out any of those shows, and definitely 97.
And if you have dove in, this is a good opportunity as any to go back.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Refresh your memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sure. let's get to know you as a fan with a little bit of a profile for the Attendance Bias Lightning Round.
Attendance Bias Lightning Round.
So, Bill, who are we talking to? When was your first Phish show, and what do you remember from it?
Okay, so two things. I actually saw an opener, a one-set opener first. I graduated high school in 90. I went to college. I came home over summer of 92, and some of my high school buddies, we decided to go see Santana at Blossom. And I had no idea. Lollapalooza was like the day before. I think it was like a Wednesday or something like that. Tuesday, Wednesday. It wasn't a weekend. Lollapalooza came through Cleveland. They tore up the lawn. So we had lawn tickets to Santana. They pushed everybody into the pavilion because Santana was very undersold and not a very popular act at the time. So I was in the back row of the seats before they added on to Blossom. Anyway, I'm sitting in the back row, me and my buddies from high school, and these guys come out on stage. You know, the drum set's over on the right, and this guy's got a sundress on. And, you know, these guys come out, and they just jam for like 45 minutes, whatever their set was, a 40-minute set. And I have it in my notes somewhere. I should have had my paperwork ready, but I didn't. Susie, Chalk Dust, Bouncin', Oki Pass Ceremony. I thought they played Uncle Pen, but it's not listed. I swear to God I heard it, but they didn't. Anyway, You Enjoy Myself, full on You Enjoy Myself, Good Times, Bad Times. And then they left. And I'm like, who the hell was that? And so, and then they came back out on stage with Santana, all four of them. So there's like 10 people on stage. And this is when I think their relationship with, Carl Perazzo and Raul Rico started.
Thinking about all the way back to those 92 shows, Trey has said often in interviews how young they were and how up and coming they were, and how he and Carlos Santana would have conversations. And I remember reading an interview where Trey said, Carlos Santana said to him,
stay humble.
Stay humble, right? He made him take out the garbage, right? Yes.
Take out the trash,
Take out the garbage. And
Absolutely.
also he said, you're going to have highs and lows as a band. If you're around for long enough, you telling me that the venue was undersold kind of reminded me of that. He goes, I'm not doing so great now, but watch, I'll be on top again. And within 6 or 7 years, when that Supernatural album came out, Carlos Santana was like one of the most popular artists in the world again.
Oh, yeah. Again. Yeah. Yep.
And now Trey has taken on that role as being like the older mentor, the veteran.
Oh yeah, with like the Goose guys and stuff like that. Yep. And I didn't see Santana again until maybe 2000. But to see 10 people on stage, and 4 of those 10 are the guys from Phish, like you're probably not going to beat that unless you're going to see like, the Allman Brothers with guest stars, or Little Feat with guest stars. I know Dead and Company doesn't really do a lot of sit-ins necessarily. Well, Phil and Friends, let's just say.
Yeah, Phil and Friends does.
You're not going to find another group of musicians like that all at once. So that was my first half a show. I didn't see them again. I went back to college and I ran into a couple buddies of mine from New York. And they said, if you ever get a chance to see those guys by themselves, you should. And so they Cleveland Agora 4/22/93 was my first full show. And I was used to going to see like heavy metal and stuff like that, like, Metallica's Black Album and Slayer and Testament. So I'm at the Agora like this on the stage. I was right in front of Johnny Fishman's drum kit the whole night for my first like real Phish show. You never go back. Like I wanted to quit playing drums. I left that night, was like, I'm done. There's no reason for me to play drums.
I've had that feeling, except the difference is it's when I sit behind Fishman that I walk away saying I never want to pick up a pair of drumsticks again.
God.
Like, how could I?
Nope. Oh, just the You Enjoy Myself, the one stroke rolls. When they bring out the trampolines.
Yep.
And they go, da, 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 I could see his hand pulling the stick. I was like, oh my God, I'm not there yet.
That's literally
I probably never will be there because I don't practice.
Well, when people say that guy has more talent in one finger than you do in your whole body, that's literally true sometimes.
And when you listen to the kick drum too, he's the hardest working guy in rock and roll. I swear to God, all that kick drum is 1 foot, and it's venture to say triple what anybody else does.
Well, what was your most recent show? Did you see them recently?
We'll keep it. I went to what was it? I ended up going to like 8 shows last summer. I did Mike's birthday was at Deer Creek. So I ended up doing all 3 nights at Deer Creek. I went to Blossom and Pine Knob, and then 3 nights at Alpine Valley was my birthday weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky as far as birthday shows go.
Well, having a summer birthday for Phish, living in the Midwest, you do all right for yourself.
Yeah. Yes. They've very lucky with the Alpine. Deer Creek twice. I think Deer Creek 96 and Deer Creek 10 was my birthday. I went to the Man in 15 was my birthday. Star Lake. Star Lake 98 was the day after my birthday, maybe. And Star Lake 97 maybe was the day before my birthday. Or no, Vernon Downs 98 was my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Well, Vernon Downs 98. That was great freaking show. We could do a whole nother podcast about that one too if you want. I'll call back into the show. I want to do another one. So, but yeah, last summer was great.
Yeah. What about their music? Like what if you had to summarize someone who wasn't there or took a year off from Phish, how would you describe their sound in 2022 in the summer?
They're good. It's so different now, for 30 years. I think they're more patient with each other. I think 3.0 and maybe more lately, a little more democratic. Paige and Mike, I think, just for instance, like, like the Grateful Dead set list. Have you ever noticed it's Jerry, Bobby, Jerry, Bobby, Jerry, Bobby?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
And as far as when they got toward the end of their career, it became that much more predictable too.
Well, even through the Brent years, actually, they did it all the way back into the 70s, I want to say, with the Keith and Donna stuff. I mean, it was always kind of Jerry, Bobby. They were the main singers. And just to be fair, but you can tell when there's a Phil pick. And not just the ones that Phil sings, but it's like, well, why are we doing Cold Rain and Stowe or Jackstraw right now?
Or
and then Bobby would do another one, I'm like, well, that's because it's a Phil pick, it's not. But anyway, so Phish kind of does the same thing where instead of like Trey, 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 and then a Mike song, and then Trey, 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 and then maybe you'll get a Page song tomorrow night. So it's much more democratic these days. Trey's always tinkering with his rig. And Kuroda is always tinkering with his rig.
Lucky for us, yeah.
Every year when you go back, it's a whole nother ball game for the most part. But then there's 90% of it stays the same, in my opinion.
If a friend asked you what he or she should listen to in order to check out Phish, can you give one live recommendation and one studio recommendation?
That's a tough one. I think depending on the person and like how well you know that friend, it's so hard. Like, okay, for example, again, if you're into metal,
right.
You might want to tell somebody to go listen to a really nice dark Carini or a Stash that gets way out there, but you're not going to say like, Page did a really good Strange Design last night, or there was a great Prince Caspian last night. But if it's somebody who's into more chill music, you could say, man, last night they played Winter Queen, and it was cool. Or Fuego went for 15 minutes and that was kind of cool, so that's a tough question. I think I would try to tailor it more per person.
All right. Well, what about studio album? What about All Things Being Equal? Forget about the different types of styles of like a dark Carini. If someone just said, all right, well, I have Spotify. I just want to check out one of their studio albums.
Not that I know Trey. I've never met Trey, and he would hate me, I think, if I told everyone Rift. I just think the songs, as far as how tough they are, the composition of It's Ice and, Rift in general, they're harder to play. And I like Horse Silent in the Morning. I love Way and Mound from Mike. Rift is a great album, and you could stick with that sector of Hoist, Rift, Nectar, I mean, that era, again, that early 90s, again, like that's when I saw them. That was my introduction to them. So I'm a little biased to mention the name of the show.
But it also,
I'm a little biased to 93.
But it also it focuses, to your point, more on the songs. Everyone thinks about Phish. Oh, they're this big jam band. They're going to noodle for an hour. But if you go to the early 90s, I'm not just talking about studio albums, but also live shows. They don't jam really.
Nope.
You might get 17 songs in a show.
25.
Yeah.
25. Yes. I had that written down too. I used to keep a log. I would write the set list when I got home. And for instance, these two shows in 97, we were talking about 18 and 16 songs. But if you go back to when I saw them, okay, just for instance, Deer Creek 96 was 20 and 23 songs.
Yeah.
20 and 21 in 94. Like I saw Summer 94. What was that? My first show, that 93, 24 songs.
Yeah. So, and that's how you drag people in, though. I think, in my opinion, is if you don't love the songs, you're not going to love the band.
Back then. And that's, I miss those days as an old man. Soul Planet for a half an hour doesn't really do it for me, and like I said, no hate mail, but a 45-minute Tweezer doesn't even really do it for me necessarily. I'd like to hear 4 more songs.
Right. Well, we're going to cut it right in the middle coming up when we get to Tweezer. I'm excited to talk about
22
today's.
Is fine.
Yeah, right. Well, what is a venue that you would love to see Phish, but you haven't yet had the opportunity? Snap your fingers, you have tickets. Where are you going?
Right. I mean, my wife and I were talking about it, and I'd maybe read up more a little bit, but short answer, I guess, would be the Gorge or something out west. I saw the Dead at Madison Square Garden, but it was years ago. So it's like, I know what the building looks like. I get it. MSG would be cool. Maybe SPAC, I've never been to SPAC, but I've been most of the Midwest I've done. Virginia Beach, I did see the Virginia Beach 97.
Oh, wow. That's a fun show.
Yeah. Hershey. I went to Hershey, not the Hershey Park, but kind of. I don't know if it was the same back in like Hershey 95.
Well, in Hershey, because in Hershey, there's an arena, which was covered
but the football
recently
field outside.
Right. Then there's the stadium outside.
I did see Hershey Stadium 2 years ago, whenever that was. I saw those. But like back in 95, is that the same place they played in 95? Was that football field outside the park?
In 95, there's like a smaller arena next to the stadium.
Where like the Hershey Bears play?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where they played in 95.
Okay. So yeah, I think that'd be my short answer would be like the Gorge or SPAC, probably.
This is kind of a double-pronged question. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. The first, so you can take them in any order you want. The first is your preferred pee break song, and then a song you wouldn't miss if your life depended on it.
You mean like song that I like?
Well, yeah, for the second one. The first one is, I could take it or leave it. The second one is, I am not leaving this for anything.
Oh, right. Well, that one's an easy. I've never seen a Colonel Forbin.
Oh,
so
wow.
Okay. I've never seen a Forbin. In fact, it's, the statistics guy, Zizix.
Yeah, of course.
Like, okay, well, I'm a Phish.net member. I've never met Zizix, but I love running my stats on there. And that's my number one, like the song that you should have seen statistically that you never saw is Forbin's Mockingbird. Just never saw one. I missed it. I missed it by 2 shows, 1 show. But the pee break song, most of my friends will tell you, I don't care if I hear another Caspian or sample. I think I've heard 25 samples live. Doesn't do anything for me.
Sure. And finally, what is the weirdest thing you've ever seen at a Phish show?
I don't think I saw the naked guy, but I think I saw like a naked guy
one time at
like Kalamazoo 95 or something where, there's like a scuffle going on over on the side of the stage and you're like, wow, what's that? And man, there was one in Cincinnati, like somebody dumped a thing of glitter and I swear to God, it went all over my head. Like I had glitter for the next, stuff like that, where you see people do weird things, rolling down the lawn or something, where you see just the way people dress, it shows, where you kind of, you're just walking through the lot and you kind of turn like, what the hell was that? And, just as far as the band, I always love a good vacuum cleaner solo.
Sure.
Fishman jumping up on top of Page's piano. I've seen that, like, I think twice.
I've never seen that.
And Page is playing and he turns around and looks and, there's a big sundress up on the grand piano, just going like this. And, and I saw all of them play drums at Northerly, like Northerly 17 or 14, somewhere in there. All 4 of them on the drum set. Never seen that before.
Yeah. I've never seen that. That's fun as hell.
Pretty rare. I saw Keyboard Army back in like 95. I never saw Acoustic Army. I wish I would have seen an Acoustic Army.
The Keyboard Cavalry, which is what I thought it was called. That was on the Fall 95, right? I don't think they played it any other time except Dick's fairly recently as like a joke.
So Kalamazoo, I want to say I saw it. Where was that? Deer Creek. I have my notes here. Kalamazoo. No. Yes. Yeah. McGrupp. Oh, I love McGrupp too.
Me too.
But it was the 10th Keyboard Army I have listed. It's kind of fun to see your songs when they're brand new. And actually that same show, Kalamazoo 95, was the second time they did the Taste That Surrounds.
Oh, right. Which would eventually turn into Taste. Yeah.
Love it. And the 4th time they did Life on Mars.
Oh, what a pleasure that is.
Oh, as an encore. Song. Yeah. I was like, wow, what's this? I had to go look it up when I got home. I had no idea it was Bowie. I'm not a huge Bowie fan. I was like, I love that song. I don't know what it is.
You are now.
When was this show played?
Well, let's take a look at Phish in context. There have been a lot of episodes on this show about Fall 97, about shows from Fall 97. So I thought we could start with like a little zoom out and then zoom in to this specific show, Auburn Hills, and December 6th of 97. So the Fall 97 tour is arguably their best known tour. It's probably their most fondly remembered tour. People speak about it in these odd tones. Like if you weren't there, this sort of thing. And It also needs to be reminded, I think, that when we look back with rose-colored glasses, as we all tend to do with Phish, that not everyone was a huge fan of the funk style. A lot of people got bored because, to your point earlier, when you're coming off this frenetic insanity of 95, right, and this kind of changeover year in 96 where they're looking for a new direction, I noticed this when listening to Tweezer that you chose. They're quite slow when they start jamming. Actually, I can imagine someone on a certain stimulant, I can say, not being too excited to hear this. What
if you notice, it's definitely something they practice, because when I listened back to it, studying for this, Fishman starts to speed up, and they make a conscious effort to bring it back down twice. And I was like, wow, there he goes. And you could tell, like, Trey just to bring the tweezer lick back as slow as he can so that Fishman slows it back down. And Mike for that, because when Mike starts popping the tweezer lick with Fishman, they just go, at tempo. And Trey's like, no, and he starts doing that. He really brings it back down. Right? Yes, in the very beginning, by the lyric
part
section.
You're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
And Trey has said in interviews that they were practicing to the meters, that they would start playing along with like a speaker system. And once they got a groove going, one of them would turn the volume down, but they would keep playing that lick. And then about a minute later, they turn the meters back up. And he said they would always be ahead. So they made a very conscious effort.
They still do that to this day. Yeah. Nothing's changed, actually. Even though they practiced it back then, they are back to speeding up every time.
So this show, Auburn Hills, December 6th, it was played just a week before the tour closed in Albany on December 13th. The previous night was in Cleveland on the 5th, which is a show I don't think I've ever heard. And the next night, the 7th, would be the famous show in Dayton, which was the breakout version of Tube. Have you ever listened to that Cleveland show?
Oh, yeah. Actually, while studying for this, I just listened to them both. I might as well. And actually, I've gone through, I've listened to every show that I possibly could. Every show. So it's like 1,700, whatever I could find that's online. I've listened to them all. So the night before in Cleveland, it was the 25th Ghost. Like, Ghost was very popular. It was the brand new album that was coming out.
Right.
I went to the Virginia Beach show. They had just come back from Europe. And so Trey was all hopped up on, USA, that show. Okay. So Ghost and Limb by Limb, it was the 25th Ghost and the 21st Limb by Limb. So those were in heavy rotation. To coin a phrase from a Page song. That was only the 6th Black Eyed Katie. And then they only played like 7 or 8 Izabellas in 97. So, Sue had Izabella. They had another baby.
Yes.
So I saw the 3rd Izabella, again, the day after my birthday. I went to Star Lake in 97 also. I did not know that is Trey and Sue's wedding anniversary.
Oh, I did not know that either.
It's August 13th. And so I don't know if she had the baby there. I don't know at Star Lake, but they played Izabella that night too. And so, it's kind of cool that it was like, or they played 10 of them. The original in 97, they played 10 Izabellas. I saw the 3rd one and the 6th one.
Jeez.
And all together, they've only played 15. And it was cool because all that stuff was new, even though like Farmhouse didn't come out until like 99. They were doing Twist Around already.
Yeah.
And they were doing Piper already. Oh, and the night before in Cleveland, they encored with Bold as Love. So a little Jimi Hendrix teaser. Yeah. So that was cool too. And for something for Page to sing, which I love it.
Of course.
I love Bold as Love. Pretty much every time they've played it. I love Bold as Love.
So this sequence, the Tweezer into Izabella, opened what would be a 6-song second set, although one of those 6 songs is Tweezer Reprise.
Yes.
I would make an argument that it's really a 5-song set. That's kind of like, since it's a reprise. But the amazing quality of this sequence seemed to be immediately recognized. Like, everyone knew they heard something incredible the minute that it was finished being played. It was a must-hear segment, and the reputation grew very quickly after. It's not often, and we talked about this off mic, but it's not often that a musical pairing gets its own little nickname.
Yes.
That's apart from the date or the location even that it was played. So just a few that came to mind. They all happen to be Tweezer and Bathtub Gin, but bear with me. So there's Tweezer Fest, which has since come to be known for any time they've weaved Tweezer in and out. But for me, it's always...
There's been a couple of them now.
It's always May 7th, 94 for me at the Bomb Factory. There's the Real Gin, right? When they mixed up the Real Meat with bathtub gin. I think that was $12.29.95. The Rupp Gin, the Fleazer, Tahoe Tweezer.
Tahoe Tweezer,
So this one very quickly became known as Tweezabella, and it's since lived on as its own moment in Phish history. So let me ask you, where and who were you in the late fall, I guess, early winter of 1997 that led you to this show?
I graduated college in December of 95, and I found out, I went back and looked. That's why I didn't go to CSU Convocation Center 12/5/95. I was graduating college, so I didn't go see Phish, and I should have, because it looked like it was a great show. I should have gone to see Phish rather than go to the graduation ceremony, because that was stupid. So I moved, I moved out of the college town. I was trying to get something going in my life, and I was in transition, kind of like the band, trying to move ahead, trying to save money. You want to try to save up enough money to buy a house, or, get a different car and all that kind of stuff, So I was 20, I turned 25 that summer. So, I'm done with college. I'm trying to get my shit together. I'm trying to, find a job, find what you're going to do with yourself, and when the tour schedule comes out, like, do you remember the Doniak Schweiss?
Of course. Yeah.
So I got the Schweiss.
Everything. Yeah.
Yep. So I used to get the Schweiss, and it was like when the tour announcements would come out, I'm like, okay, I have to, it was a no-brainer to go to Cleveland. I can go to my mom's house, I could stop by and see my mom. Like, I used to live on the west side of Cleveland in Avon Lake. And so, I could just go to Cleveland, and then it's only a couple hours, but I still lived in, it's like close enough. Like I said, I can go to Blossom and still come home and sleep in my own bed. Or Pine Knob, for that matter, if you really want to huff it, a little bit. So I was that kind of guy. Like I said, I don't have a lot of money, so I actually saw 4 shows in 97. So that was a lot for me at the time, but it was only $20 a show. I think $22.50, whatever. Right. Ticketmaster or Ticketron. Remember Ticketron?
Yes. Yeah.
Before it was Ticketmaster. Yeah.
So let me ask you, why do you have attendance bias of all the shows you've seen? Why this specific performance?
This one just stood out, I think, because I went to the show the night before in Cleveland. And then when you're standing there the next night, whatever I didn't hear the night before, I knew, like, boy, I hope they play something cool tonight, because this is it. I got these 2 shows. And then, God forbid, I should have gotten tickets to Dayton. But hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, Psycho Killer was going to be played the next night, and probably Forbin's,
That's right. My first show was December 29th, 97, and I passed on a ticket for the next night, December 30th. I had to wait until the Baker's Dozen to see Harpua. So,
oh man, yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, I didn't get that one until 03, and then I
Fooled Around and Fell in Love, right?
Yes, and Bittersweet Motel,
right?
All inside of it, and oh man, and then I didn't hear another one until Northerly. What was that with the Second City people?
Oh, that was 2014.
14, I think, because I went to 13 and with the rain, you got the rain, and 14, I think we got rain down too.
Yeah.
The 03 one was definitely better than the one with the Second City people, but I'm glad I've got 2 Harpuas,
Hi, everybody. Brian here to welcome you to the set break of today's episode of Attendance Bias. First, thank you for listening. And second, just a quick reminder to tell you that even though Attendance Bias comes to you for free, it does take a lot of work, and it does take quite a bit of money to keep the lights on here at production. So I just wanted to ask a small favor. If you could support the podcast in any number of the following ways: if you could leave a review or a rating of it on whichever podcast app you use, if you could spread the word telling a friend or someone you think may be interested in it about it, or probably the most concrete way is to go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate however much you can financially to help with the continuing costs of Attendance Bias. So thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the second half of today's episode. So let's dig into this jam. Tweezer starts, and I thought it was kind of funny because you and I have talked a lot about the early 90s, how Tweezer originally ended before they started jamming it out with this kind of fall apart ending where they all kind of slowed down and it's almost like a game, one note at a time. But that's how this one starts.
Well,
it's like
I have an
like
explanation
playing.
for that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so I timed it out just from the going on to re-listen. I think Mike was late. Like, when they walk out on stage and, Trey basically runs out on stage, puts his guitar on. He starts playing the Tweezer lick right away. Very impatient, doesn't wait for anybody. Okay. If you notice, that's at like 15 seconds in. Then they start noodling around about 37 seconds I wrote down. Are you familiar with Mike's fight bell?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think I hear anything from Mike until 37 seconds. So that's more than 15 seconds later. At 102, fight bell. Like, screw you.
So I've arrived.
You didn't wait for me. And not only did you not wait for me, you played the Tweezer lick and totally gave it away that we're starting the set with Tweezer. So, bing, fight bell at 102. And the drums don't come in. Yeah, the drums don't come in until 1 minute and 50 seconds. So it's another 45 seconds until Fishman comes up with the drums.
And that's what I like. That's actually my favorite part, not of the whole jam, but of this weird intro, which is kind of its own song at around when Fishman comes in. To me, it's almost like they're playing possum. They play it not colloquially. I mean, literally the song possum.
But you're right. Like I said, remember Trey doesn't let the joke go?
Right.
They are literally playing possum. Like you're playing, like maybe we're not going to play Tweezer.
Yeah, right. Maybe
Trey already gave it away. Maybe we're not going to play Tweezer.
And it was a lot of fun.
I think Mike, not that Mike is mad, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was on purpose because he didn't wait for Mike to put his bass on. That's my interpretation. And that's my memory was like, hey, where the hell's Mike? Like, you're already playing Tweezer.
Where were you sitting? Were you on the floor?
No, I was up in my ticket stub is probably over on the wall over there, but I was upper bowl, a little bit more on Fishman and Mike's side. So like, where the soundboard and everything is, I was pretty centered, but a little bit more towards Mike and Fishman's side, if I remember correctly.
After the possum tease, if you will, that drives the crowd crazy. You could hear it on the recording. Everyone goes nuts. And then they crash right into Tweezer. And now we're listening to Tweezer proper. And my first thought was, for jaded vets like myself who complain sometimes about how, I put this in quotes, how slow Phish plays these days.
Yes.
I'm sometimes one of those fans.
Yep. Me too.
It always does us good to listen back to 97 to refresh our memories of how slow Phish has played in the past.
And on purpose, like we talked about, another thing that they talk about is 97. They listened to a lot of James Brown on the bus. Was it Soul Power 72 or something like that? Mm-hmm. And so I think, again, now remember, Summer Tour 97 was the year that Fishman didn't wear his sundress. He played he played in a full black suit.
In Europe, he did. He also did it in America.
Yeah. But no, when they came back, I saw that Virginia Beach show. I thought that was the only time that I saw him without a sundress. But wow. I've read that people said it was the whole tour because I don't remember at Star Lake. I thought he had his sundress back on. So again, I think they made a conscious effort to play slower, and the whole idea of cow funk and playing funky is to be deliberate on the one, be slower, and for the joke, cowbell. Because if you notice, this Tweezabella has a lot of the cowbell.
A lot of it, and wood blocks,
It's all cowbell. So, therefore, cow funk.
Yeah,
and definitely conscious effort to do that.
100%. And it comes through. There's that very typical Fall 97 funk sound. The jam starts a little bit after 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Like if someone asked me, oh, what do you mean by cow funk? Like a total stranger who's first getting to Phish, I would pick that part at 7:15.
Right here.
And it's this is right it. There. And it's very repetitive in a good way. I mean, until about 10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
When the band slows down.
Yes.
And they you mentioned democracy earlier, like how democratically they were playing. That's what struck me at 10 minutes. It's like they slow down and they edge almost to stop that allows different band members to step forward if they want, but not all of them need to. It's like Page just kind of lets it flow a little bit.
Yes.
And this is the first time I wrote about Fishman in capital letters. How does he do that?
Oh yeah. Listening to James Brown and those guys, I'm telling you. But yeah, I wrote it down in my notes too. First of all, and the keyboard players out there can let us know, Page has a clavinet now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I originally saw them, it was just the baby grand piano and the Hammond. I can't remember if it was 95. I know he had it in 96, but by 97, he had that mini Moog. He had a mini Moog and he's got the clavinet. And so when you listen to this jam, right, like you said, at 6:20, they kind of make a bed. They make a funky bed and Trey backs off. And I've got Page on the clav 8 minutes to 9 minutes. So like you said, about 7:15, they start to really cow funk it. About 8-9 minutes in, Page on the clav for sure. And then they kick in the funk. They, add Trey back in. And then, like I said, at 10 minutes in, they chill. And I was like, okay. And then, my question to the keyboard players is, I wrote down, Page goes back to piano. And I think it's either a Prophet or a CP70. I've talked to other keyboard players about this. Page has another keyboard that he might have added in 97. And it's like,
yeah, I love that sound.
That's new. That is new for 97, I think. Page, I think they wanted to try out new things, and that was the time to like go ahead. Trey's trying to let him step in. And then, like you said, the busy drums, at
11
the pull
minutes,
rolls again.
Just amazingly fast, but simultaneously laid back, right? Fast does not mean intense in this case.
Right. And same thing. If Fishman starts to speed up and he realizes it and they bring him back and he really does fit that double time into the cut time. It took about 30 seconds for him to really settle back into it and get the snare hits back on the like to really slide back into the cow funk, but still doing pull rolls.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And like 16ths. Yeah, he really, and then the start stop funk going into the 12-minute mark, but still chill.
I hit it at around 11 minutes and 30 seconds. That this band is so locked in that when Fishman decides to stop, the whole rest of the groove continues without him.
Yes.
And you've been in bands before. When I was a bit younger, I was in bands. If one player, especially the drummer, stops playing, the whole band usually just comes to a stop and looks around and says, what's wrong? These guys are so locked in that an entire rhythm instrument can just the backbone can completely stop making sound, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the band it still keeps rolling. It's fabulous.
And I think it's definitely documented that in their exercises for their band practice, they worked on that.
I'm sure.
Like for all four of them, they would take any two members and subtract them, and the jam should stay the same. I think they very consciously worked on that.
Yep.
And like you said, if the drummer drops out, usually it's like, oh my God, everybody's like, what am I doing? And no, you shouldn't do that. You just the drums should be playing in your head, regardless of whether the drummer's playing or not. The Mike Bob. I just call it the Mike Bob.
I love the Mike Bob.
If you watch Mike's old fluffy hair, you should never ever stop doing the Mike Bob. Don't ever stop Mike bobbing. And the other thing is
become a better listener.
Yeah, and Fishman's hi-hat foot. If you watch Fishman's left foot and Mike's hair, you will never be lost. Never ever will you be lost. Yep.
And then they switch over a little bit after 13 minutes.
Yes.
To what I like to call, and this is a flexible term, but I call it planetarium Phish. It's
delay.
Really just,
the delay loop jams.
It's like a taste of ambiance that I think in 1998 would really become a little bit more central part of their sound. The rhythm.
Did he do the whale call too?
I did.
Not to cut you off, but I can't remember if there's that's when he does the wee.
Yeah,
like that was very.
I did not hear it prominent in this jam.
He did it. I thought I wrote it down somewhere that he did like when maybe I didn't write it down. But I know there is one. It's very common in 97 for the boomerang.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember when Trey got the boomerang. And again, put it in the comments, people, if you know it's 97. It's the boomerang. And that was, before Gotta Jaboo and all that. This is when Trey used to do
the beginning of Tube. Yeah.
It was during the Tweezer jam. I have it written down as major key because it's A minor. The Tweezer is A minor funk, Dorian. So you're in the key of G. But I didn't actually pick up a guitar or anything. But they turn it major, and I wrote down delay and majestic. Like it really gets.
It is
just very majestic, very wide open, and it's in a major key. It's very happy, very chill. But like you said, Fishman's still moving in the background.
Yeah.
Like at any moment, like this is where, people talk the difference between a type 1 and a type 2 jam. Technically, to me, it's still type 1, because at any second you could go back into the Tweezer funk.
Right, without skipping a beat. Yeah.
Even though they made it major and it's more majestic and open.
And my favorite part of this whole Tweezer jam is at about 15 minutes and 30 seconds, they move into this swing,
yes,
3/4 tempo, which weirdly was not that uncommon as a rhythm trick that they learned for this tour. The first association I have of it, I remember I mentioned this show already, but it's very slim. It's at the end of the encore of Good Times, Bad Times. At my first show, December 29th, 97, there's a part in the middle of a Led Zeppelin jam of all songs where all of a sudden Fishman and Mike are playing a and it's like, where are they? But it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
And they do it here. I know this was before that performance, but I'm kind of listening to it in reverse.
I think they've been doing it for longer.
Probably.
Do you remember The Secret Language in 93?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, they used to have the signal for, ain't got a thing if you ain't got that swing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If you hear that signal, Fishman immediately would go to swing. So they had signals of, you have to do that. And then I think it was a 94 Tweezer up in Michigan. Actually, I think it was around my birthday again. It was like an August 12th or 13th. They used to do Get Back by the Beatles.
Yes. Yeah. And they would go back usually during David Bowie, during the intro.
Yep. And they did it in Tweezer jams. No matter what you're doing, they did Tweezer Landlady. And I think it's August 94. If anybody wants to go look it up, I think it's August 13th, 94. Same thing. So you're in the middle of something crazy. And then it's like, Jojo was a man who thought he was a loner. Boom. You're back into Landlady, or you're back into Tweezer. I was like, oh my God, so it's not anything new, I think. But again, they were a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and a little bit easier for them, I think, to use these tricks.
And toward the end of this track, there's a big swirling, sweeping power chords. I had the thought the first time I listened to it, I wrote it down. And then today when I was driving home, listening to it again, obviously not in front of a computer, but I had the same thought. This is big vibes of The Song Remains the Same, like very arena rock, psychedelic.
Yep.
I'm not speaking as the guitar player. I'm not beholden to the typical constraints of this song. I'm just going to produce really awesome, cool sounds for you and everyone else.
Yeah.
And Paige steps forward on piano. It's like Trey is steering this huge cargo ship. It's very dramatic playing.
Yeah. The hose jam. I would call it. Like,
that's what you call it. Okay.
Machine Gun Trey.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, not just Jimmy Page and Song Remains the Same, but I would say Hendrix. Another big thing besides the James Brown was they are a huge fan of the Band of Gypsies album. And therefore Machine Gun Trey, you know, if you love the Band of Gypsies album, this is exactly right up your alley. When he just, it's like they still got that going, the rhythm section, and Trey just, you know, turn your tube screamer back on, turn the other tube screamer back on, you know, just he's just trilling, like doing all these fast, you know, it's Machine Gun Trey. And I definitely, I wrote that down because then there was a hold, like the double time, they teased double time. So I think he waved him off. I said, I have a hose jam at about 16:30 and then a double time tease at 17:20. Fishman, just for like two measures, like Fishman double times. I think he waves them off like, no. You know, like, don't double time. Don't do it.
Well, you mentioned Fishman kind of steps it to double time before he's waved off. To me, that kind of set the table for Izabella, you know, to show that we're ready to really kill it, more rock and roll than psychedelic ambiance. So Izabella, my not favorite, but the first thing I smiled was at around 40 seconds, really early, Fishman with his first, which gives it a little extra adrenaline, which he'd been doing throughout the year.
Right. And again, if you go back to that Virginia Beach show, and he said they'd play Dog Stole Things for the first time, and then he introduced the songs, and Trey said, you can tell by the way he's playing tonight that nobody has stolen Fishman's soul.
Yeah.
And he started talking about the James Brown thing, and Fishman was doing it at the Virginia Beach show and going, doing all the James Brown. So this was pretty common, I think, for 97 at the time. But I will say too, right before that, another reason I think why Fishman did that, they were not together for the first 30 seconds of the Izabella transition.
No,
Trey started doing that, and he was off from Fishman set his drum part with Mike, and Trey was exactly 2 beats off. So they had to flip it, or one of them flipped their part. And so once Trey and Fishman clicked together, then you get the, hey, like, like, this
now they're
sounds
ready to
good.
go.
I'm glad we're doing this now. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think it was very, very the energy of Fishman doing that is great. And Fishman was not a big singer at the time.
No, it was more of a joke than anything else.
It
But you could tell he was practicing,
except for taste.
Taste and the backing vocals of Izabella.
Yes.
Right.
I don't
And
remember
he became
Fishman doing a
better.
lot in 96. But
Right.
yeah, this is his, he used to have the headset mic
Yep.
and
Yeah.
the goggles.
Yeah, the little operator thing. Yeah.
97, I think, was more the swing around boom stand microphone, if I remember correctly. I definitely have that Fishman getting the energy going, and the first verse starting right about then, about almost 1 minute into the Izabella.
Yeah, and it crushes it. When people consider Fall 97 and it's all about funk, this amazing Machine Gun Tray is overlooked. I wouldn't say forgotten, but I think it's on equal standing as much funk as they play. Like, there's nothing like an obscure Hendrix cover to give him a guitar playground. But it's interesting that after they're done with the song proper, like the lyrics, they actually quiet down. It kind of forces Trey to kind of pull back on the shredding. He leaves this one like feedback laden note.
Yeah. Or the boomerang again. Like, wee, wee.
And Page takes over on the organ. And to me, this is real jamming. Like, band members are trading roles here while the others are holding onto the song, but still improvising.
And I have written down that Page goes back to the Hammond. And actually, I have it written down that it's 420. It's right about 420. The cow funk starts again, and Page switches over to the Hammond. And yes, I think it's a conscious effort, because I will say for 97, it's not rare to have a 5-song second set. If you look at all the set lists for the whole tour, it's not rare. 5 or 6 songs every single night. Because Cleveland was, well, where the hell did I get that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cleveland show was 7. Because they didn't have a lot of long ones in there. They didn't do a Tweezabella in Cleveland, but so the 7 songs, that was a lot. But I think I saw maybe the next year, Cleveland 98, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 97 and 98. It's not rare to have a 5 or a 6 song second set like that. So I think that, and the common thread is that cow funk, because if you keep listening, after, when they go into Twist and Piper, they'll go right back to the cow funk that they already set up in Tweezer, in Izabella, in Twist. They just go back to it. Well,
that's funny that you say that, because Izabella is not a song that's associated with funk. Even though Jimi Hendrix wrote it and played it, in my opinion, when it comes to Phish.
Yeah, I'd say on the outer edges of funk. If I was going to pick a Hendrix song that was funky, yeah. In my brain, maybe it's because I first got obsessed with that 12/30/97 version. To me, Izabella is just wash guitar attack, like just kick your ass. Yep.
So to me, by around 5 minutes and 30 seconds, they're ready again doing stop, start jamming.
Yes.
The other 3 members keep playing, like we discussed earlier, and they're back to the funk. I wrote, this is just stream of consciousness. By 6.5 minutes, this is one of the best jams ever.
Yeah.
Just the way I wrote it.
Patient, very patient with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a theory about this one because they didn't do it. Well, they didn't play it in Cleveland either. You know how at the end of Yem, after Trey does his solo in Yem, the same thing, Page gets his little thing. Trey does a machine gun solo, and then he leaves them with Mike and Fishman. And then they do a vocal jam. Okay. This is the same formula, except it's the jam of Izabella. So I have written the cow funk at 420. They do, like you said, the start stop jamming. I have the clav. So Paige goes first at 6:30. Trey goes second at 7:40. And then at 8:40, we have drums and bass. And I wrote down, this is the Yem formula.
I wrote that. I wrote drum, lead, bass, and drums. And
this is the Yem formula.
Yeah.
And then instead, what happens when they get done with Yem? They go back to what you feet say, dropping it. So one last time, I have at 9:12, one last funk. And so it's like a reprise of one last time. We're all going to play together. And that's when Trey pulls the ripcord for the twist.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on to Attendance Bias to go through this legendary jam. I think you said you had, your crown, you had your jewels that you could pick from your show going career.
Yeah.
I think you picked a real top tier jam of the Tweezer into Izabella from December 6th, 97 in Auburn Hills. So thank you so much for being on the show, for taking the time and the enthusiasm and the notes. Oh my God, everyone at home, you could probably hear the pages flipping.
Yeah,
he came better prepared than I ever did. So
Nice.
Bill, thank you so much for being such a good sport about this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for today's interview with Bill Stadler. Bill has a long history with Phish going all the way back to the early 90s. So naturally, I had to double check and make sure we got everything right with today's Attendance Bias Fact Check.
Attendance Bias Fact Check.
Toward the beginning of today's episode, I mentioned that 1997 is always a popular choice for this podcast. Including this episode, guests have chosen jams or shows from 1997 9 times. 8 of those 9 times have been from the fall tour. The only exception was when Helping Friendly podcast co-host Megan Gliona chose to discuss the show from July 21st, 1997 at the Virginia Beach Amphitheater. Bill's first time seeing Phish was for one of their opening slots on tour with Santana. My research suggests that this was on July 31st, 1992. There is clear footage of the band's sit-in available on YouTube, though I have not found any footage of Phish's opening set. The audio also is not available on Phish.in. Bill references a Fall 95 show in Kalamazoo, Michigan several times, including when he saw the band play Keyboard Army, Taste That Surrounds, and Life on Mars. That show was played on October 17, 1995 at Wings Stadium. In addition to those songs, the show is notable for having several secret language signals during the opening build-up in Possum. The night after this show was played, December 7th, 97, was covered on Attendance Bias with guest Eric Creighton. If you're interested in listening, that episode was released on June 1st, 2022. After further research, I can confirm that Bill was right. Fishman wore a 3-piece suit for the 1997 summer tour, then picked the muumuu back up for the fall. Truth be told, I could not keep up with all of Bill's rundown of Page's rig during the fall 97 tour, but lucky for all of us, podcaster and keyboard player Ryan Storm runs a Substack that details Page's rig year to year and sometimes tour to tour. His breakdown of Page's fall 97 rig is as follows. Facing the audience was a Yamaha CS60 synthesizer. On Trey's side was a Yamaha C7 grand piano, a Hohner clavinet D6. Behind him, in the rear, was a Hammond B3 organ and a Moog Source synthesizer. Side stage was a Fender Rhodes Mark I. And as far as his effects and amps, the clavinet was run through a Maestro phase shifter, a Vox wah pedal, and a Fender Deluxe reverb amplifier. The Hammond B3 organ is run through a Leslie rotating speaker mic'd on the top and bottom with rotation in opposite directions for a stereo effect for the audience. Page's organ is also modified to have an extra percussive sound. Bill talks about a segue of the Landlady into Tweezer back into the Landlady, quote, in 94, somewhere in Michigan. He had the right set list and the right location, but the wrong date. He was thinking of the second set of August 12, 1993 at the Meadowbrook Music Festival in Rochester Hills, Michigan. There is a sequence in set 2 where the band plays Tweezer sandwiched in between the Landlady with lots of secret language signals. Very impressive and fun stuff. And that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Bill Stadler for joining me today, Phish.net for its thorough help with the fact check, and Phish.in for the recording used in today's episode. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show by leaving a rating and a review of it on your favorite podcast app, and you could also go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendance bias and donate anything you can to keep the lights on here at production. As always, thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.